Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third episode of the College Ready Prep High School Sports Show. I'm here today with my good friend, Coach Juan Rivas. Coach, good to have you on the show.
Thank you, Amir. Thank you for having me.
Of course,
Thank
of course.
you. Pleasure to be here.
Now, Coach, I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this already know you, since you're a pillar of the East Dallas community. If you could just tell everybody a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and where you went to school, and all of that.
I'll go all the way back. I was born in Dallas, Texas, born and raised in Dallas. Lived in the East Dallas community my whole life. Born in St. Paul Hospital, just real quick. Went to DISD schools my whole school career. Went to Orrin Roberts Elementary School, which is it's near the Fair Park area. So went there through 6th grade. Went to Long Middle School, which feeds into Woodrow Wilson High School, which is where I went to high school at. Graduated 2003 from Woodrow Wilson High School.
Okay, so DISD product.
DISD product.
Absolutely.
Proud of it.
What do you tell your players about what it's going to take to play at the college level?
Wow. Obviously, the academics is big. One of the things that we do at VA is for the basketball team, and now we've expanded it to the entire athletic program.
Okay.
I've been fortunate to have the opportunity to be the assistant athletic coordinator at VA now, and so I've been able to implement some things that kind of benefit the entire program. But one of the things we do is they got to make 80s and up.
Okay, so B's and up.
B's and up. Right now, obviously, if you don't make a B, there are consequences that come with that, right?
Okay.
And it's left up to the head coach of the program to decide what consequences. But we're trying to stress academics. Academics is a big part of it. The other part of it that a lot of people don't realize is the community side of things, right? You have to teach, at least what we do at VA, is you have to teach kids to serve the community, right? Community service is a big part of it.
Absolutely.
We do a ton of community service projects at VA. We do with the Dallas City Council, a good friend of mine named Adam Medrano. Every time he has an event, calls us over, we go help. But that's a big part of it, that the kids have to understand that there's extra that they got to do.
Right.
Right? It's not just the sport. It's not just the books. There's more to it. Right? A lot of the questions that we get asked as coaches often by people that are recruiting our kids is, what kind of kid is he?
Right.
Right? What is he going to do on his downtime? What is he going to do when he's not in class, when he's not at practice? Can I be comfortable enough to know that he's not getting into trouble? So we try to start that early on. So those are the things that we preach: community service, academics, just being an all-around, well-rounded person, right? So that when they do ask that question to us coaches, we have a good answer.
Absolutely,
an
honest answer.
Absolutely, and that's a big part of it. That's the thing we stress to our kids too. When a college coach asks us a question, we're going to be honest. Right. No matter how much we love you, we're going to be completely honest, because we want those recruits to come back and recruit our kids, or those recruiters to come back and recruit our kids. So that's what some of the things that we preach.
Are there other things about how to stay out of trouble or how to conduct yourself on social media, other things like that you have a conversation about with your players?
Yeah, I mean, what we do, we actually had that not too long ago, where we talked about social media and how everything that you post, most of these big time universities and most of the small schools too, they have somebody, even if it's not the coach himself, monitoring social media for these athletes.
Right.
So what I do, with our kids, and we try to do it as a staff, is if you wouldn't say it to your mom, don't put it on social media.
There you go.
And that, I know that, it's kind of open-ended, but we pretty much try to preach that. We don't want them to put something on social media. Sometimes it could be the lyrics to a rap song, or it could be just a picture of something crazy that they're, you know what I mean? And so we just try, if you wouldn't show your mom, or if you wouldn't tell your mom, don't do it. Don't put it on there. Right. And that's a big deal. There's people who've lost scholarships, because of what they posted on social media. And so that's something huge that we talk to with our kids. We talk, how they speak to each other is a big deal that we do. I know it sounds, small, but in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty big. How they speak to each other as teammates, how they speak to, adults. We some of our kids, we have to go back and really walk them through the process of how to do those things, because unfortunately some of our kids don't have the support at home, that we can offer at school. And so that we take more of a parenting role, outside of the coaching role. So it's more of a 24/7 deal with us.
Absolutely. And teaching kids social skills is an important part of just coaching, and it's one of the very things that they do at VA, because they want college recruiters to see these young men and women as productive adults that can work and communicate in any environment. So they teach that at the high school, which is a great thing. You segued perfectly into my next question, which is, it's virtually impossible, in my opinion, to explain to a 16, 17-year-old kid that, you don't know what's going to happen in the future,
Right.
and you might not become a professional athlete. So how do we have this conversation with our kids about being realistic or just life beyond sports?
Well, you got to kind of speak to them in their terms, right? You got to kind of just break it down to where they understand it. And the best way to do it is I was lucky enough to play college basketball, not at a high level, but college basketball in a small college. So I could use myself as an example. And so for them, it's something that they can relate to. The biggest thing with our kids is when you talk big picture, especially our kids, it's hard for them to see it, right? You have to give them examples. They're very visual. They're very hands-on. They got to see it. They got to understand it. So what we do with our kids is I just talk about myself. I said, look, I was never the best athlete. I was never the best player, but I worked my butt off. And I understood that basketball wasn't going to be, what I was going to play when I was 35, 40 years old, to make money. So what I did very early on is just look at my options and what do you want to do after basketball? And if you have a student, and what we do, most kids think they're all going to go to the NBA anyway.
Most kids think they're going to go to the NBA.
So what we try to tell them is, look, after you're done with the NBA, we try to kind of just think afterwards.
Right.
If you do go to the NBA, right, maybe you might. What are you going to do then? Well, coach, I'm going to be a millionaire. Well, what if you're not? Right? What are you going to do? You're going to be bored or you're going to have downtime. What do you want to do? Right? And so that's what we try to tell our kids and just come up with a plan. We actually sit with each one of our athletes early on every August before we start anything, and we sit down, we map out a plan, right? Depending on what grade they're in, right, it'll be the length of the plan, but we look at what are you going to do? Okay, you want to play basketball, great. Even if you want to play basketball, when you go to college, you're going to have to study something. Nobody's getting drafted straight out of high school anymore. So
Right.
The big deal is we look at when you're at that university, you got to study something. What do you want to study?
Right.
Do you want to study something that you don't like, or do you want to study something that you're interested in? And so we push that with our kids, and they talk, and then we have our kids give us a list. Give me a list of the top 5 colleges and universities that you want to go to. And they all, of course, all list these high major schools. So then the next question is, what do you want to study? Go on. We have our kids go online and does that school offer the major that you're looking at?
Right.
Some of these kids find, man, that school that I like that I want to go play basketball at because I like the color of their uniform or whatever doesn't
Right.
have what I want to study.
Right.
Right. So then, okay, well, then you got to take that school off your list. I'm like, well, wait a minute now. Or change your major.
Right.
So these are realistic questions that you got to ask these kids that if you don't tell them, they don't know.
They don't know. That's
Right.
right.
And so that's the big part, just mapping it out. But that's the way we try to approach it, having a plan. Most of them don't want to think about life outside of basketball, so we
Right.
try to incorporate basketball into their life and say, okay, you're going to be playing basketball. While you're playing basketball, what are you going to be studying? What are you going to be doing and going to class for?
Right. Right.
And so that's usually how you get them to open up about what they want to do. And a lot of them actually don't know what they want to do. So then you go and ask questions about their likes and dislikes. You have them do surveys, right? Our counseling team at our school is really great about, doing career searching and things like that. So it's pretty easy as far as them figuring out if they don't know what they want to study, what their interests are.
Absolutely. So at BA, they take a very holistic, comprehensive approach to, communicate to students about, thinking about life beyond basketball and what kind of careers they want to pursue. And I would even argue, Coach, that even kids growing up, let's say, out of the inner city, in a more of a suburban environment, when you're young, you're very idealistic. You have big dreams. It's hard to be realistic about a lot of things. So this is a common problem that I think a lot of students face. And what I tell a lot of students is, you can still continue to be in the field of sports, just not necessarily as a professional player. Whether it's as an agent, as a sports writer, broadcaster, sports medicine, et cetera, et cetera. A coach.
Yeah.
We have a lot of guys that go back and become coaches and then into administration and things
Sure.
like that. So that's that's another way to think about this. Now let me ask you this, Coach. If you had a player who was about to go on a college visit, what would you tell that player? How would you tell that player to conduct themselves, and what kind of questions should that player ask of the school?
I have one that's getting some invites to come to different colleges, some small Division II schools and some NAIA schools. Had a kid that played for BA this year who had a very successful career at BA, scored over 1,500 points in his career at BA.
Wow.
Has a 3.1 GPA, scored okay on the SAT and the ACT, but he's actually going on a visit next week. And so we actually sat down on Monday and had this conversation. And the conversation, I just basically told them, hey, look, you're going on a campus where nobody knows you.
Right.
All they know is what you can do on the court and what's written on the paper as far as your grades. They don't know what kind of person you are. They don't know your work ethic.
And what they've seen on social media.
And what they've seen on,
Yeah.
social media.
Right.
Right. And so that's actually how one of the coaches reached out to him.
Wow.
Right.
There you go.
But, what I told him is just go up there, be respectful, number one. Right. Carry yourself in a way that, remember, first impressions last, forever, they say. Right?
Absolutely.
And most people can't get that first impression out of their head. So I just tell them to go and just work his butt off and really look at the campus. What I tell my kids is it's easy to go to the school and say, okay, I want to play basketball. I like the gym. Most of our kids fall in love with facilities.
Right.
They look at the gym, they look at the weight room, they look at the dorm rooms, right?
Right.
That's great. That's part of it. But what I tell my kid and what I told him is this is a 5-hour drive from here.
Okay.
So what I tell my kid is I tell him, make sure you look at the surrounding areas for the campus.
Okay.
You're the one who's going to live there.
Right.
Right? Are there fast food restaurants around that you like? Right? Is there a mall around there? Or is there a store around there? Are there things around there that you can see yourself being happy there day to day to where you're not there and trying to come back home and then you're not focused on the books, you're not focused on practicing, you're trying and looking to transfer, right? The questions some of the questions I asked, I told him that he needs to ask is he needs to ask the coaches, right? What kind of support is available if your kids are failing or if they're struggling in the class, what do you do as a coaching staff to help me get the help that I need, right? The other thing is ask about money. A lot of
Right.
recruits, a lot of kids that are getting recruited, they're so happy to be, we're being recruited, that they go and they work out and they leave and they don't ask the number one question, right? Are you going to pay for my education? Or if you are, if you're only going to pay for part of it, how much of it are you going to pay for?
Right.
What am I looking
Right.
at? A lot of these colleges, they'll give these kids the breakdown of what it's going to look like, and it'll include financial aid and Pell money and all the, everything. But it also, what they don't tell often is that it has loans on there.
Right.
So ask the coach, ask the people in the financial office, say, am I going to have to get a student loan to come here? And if I am going to, after 4 years, what am I looking at as far as debt for me to pay back?
Right.
Right. And so those are the questions that I had. And you could tell his mind was just kind of blown. And,
Right.
and it's just basic questions. He's more focused on the basketball side.
Right.
And where am I going to play basketball? What color uniforms do they wear, coach? I mean,
Right.
that kind of stuff. But I'm like, ask the money question. That should be some of the first questions that you ask. How much are you going to contribute?
Right.
Right. Because, you look at NCAA schools, NAIA schools, they're limited.
They are.
Even Division I schools, they have limits, right? But you have limits on the money that's available for these kids. And so that's what I ask them. What is available for you? What is it looking like out of pocket? What is it looking like with loans? And so those are some of the big questions that I told them to ask. It was more geared to, number one, your day-to-day life. Is it going to be to where you're happy being there? And then the financial side of it.
Absolutely. So I think what Coach is trying to say is that, ask about where's the meat. Don't worry about the condiments. Where's the meat? And the financial aid package is critical to your long-term future. Because there's a lot of students, Coach, I was actually looking this up today. The average college graduate has about nearly $40,000 in debt. And that's for an undergraduate degree.
Yep.
Now, as an athlete, if you're getting scholarships, whether they're full or partial, that can substantially reduce that amount.
But one of the questions I asked my kid is ask the coaching staff how many of the kids that they get to go there transfer from their basketball team.
Gotcha.
Is it a lot of kids, do the kids that they recruit, do they stay there?
Right.
Right. And that was one of the things I want him to ask when he goes on his visit. I want to know if they are transferring, because if there are a lot of kids that are transferring from that campus, I want to find out why.
One of the things we like to do with the College Ready Prep High School Sports Show is just give information to students and families about, how to go about thinking about the recruitment process and what are some steps that they can take to ensure that their students are successful. Well, Coach, we appreciate you having you on our show.
Appreciate it.
Again, this is Coach Rivas from Bryan Adams High School, and we are signing out from the College Ready High School Sports Show.
Thank you.